You're listening to Talking to Teens, where we speak with leading experts from a variety of disciplines about the art and science of parenting teenagers. I'm your host, Andy Earle. Hey, we're here today with Marcus du Sautoy, talking about how to think better. Marcus is a mathematician. He's the author of the book, Thinking Better. We're going to talk about laziness and looking for the easy way out, and why actually laziness can sometimes be a good thing. And the desire to conserve our effort can lead to some great discoveries of how to save time and save energy. We're going to see how shortcuts or looking for the easy way out often gets a bad rap, but that actually it's a critical skill that can help all of us to be more successful in business and in life. We're going to see how you can use shortcuts to learn music more efficiently. We're going to talk about perfectionism and how shortcuts can help us get past perfectionism and get our stuff out there. We're going to look at sometimes when it's actually better to take a long cut rather than a shortcut. We're going to see one specific shortcut, which is considering the opposite of whatever the problem is that you're trying to solve and working backwards from there. And we're going to look at some really interesting neuroscience research showing that the way grandmasters think about chess moves and look for shortcuts is very different from the way amateur chess players analyze the chessboard. And we're going to see what that means for all of us and our teenagers. All of that and a whole lot more is coming up on today's show. Marcus, thank you so much for being here. You have this book that I've just finished reading called Thinking Better, The Art of the Shortcut in Math and Life. What got you interested in shortcuts, and why did you think that writing a whole book on this topic would be a good idea?
Well, I'm a mathematician, and actually I decided I wanted to be a mathematician when I became a teenager, actually. It was about the age of 13 that my maths teacher at my school, or math teacher, as you say in America, kind of weird. Why do we have more maths than you do? I don't know. But,
no, there's only one.
But yeah, my maths teacher just told us this wonderful story about a young German mathematician, sort of illustrating the power of mathematical thinking. And I mean, it was, you can do the little challenge yourself. The challenge was, how do you add up the numbers from 1 to 100? Now, there's a really boring, slow, laborious way to do that, which is you start at the beginning, 1 plus 2
plus 2. Right.
Yeah, that's 3 plus 3 is 6 plus, and you're likely to make mistakes. It's going to take you ages to do. Yeah. But my teacher told me the story of this young German mathematician who was challenged with this at school, beginning of the 19th century. He was at school, and the teacher thought, I'll set this problem, take
this
the kids ages to solve.
Yeah,
exactly. I can get a good bit of rest at the back front of the class. And before he even finished posing the problem, this kid, Carl Friedrich Gauss was his name, had written down a number on his little slate pad and put it down in front of the teacher. And the teacher thought, gosh, what a strange kind of kid that's just writing random numbers down. But then he saw the right answer there. So he asked this young Gauss, well, how did you do that so quickly? And he said, well, there's a shortcut, because you don't have to start at the beginning and just add the numbers up in turn. You can actually take them in pairs. So you can begin at the beginning and take the end at the same time. So 1 plus 100 adds up to 101, but 2 plus 99 also adds up to 101. So he saw this clever pattern that if you look at the numbers in pairs from the start and the end of the calculation, you've actually just got 50 pairs of numbers adding up to 101. And so the answer is 50 times 101, which is 5,050. And so my teacher told us this story, and I was like, wow, what a brilliant way of thinking.
Yeah.
teenagers, look, we're all lazy as teenagers. We're all looking to avoid doing hard work, and it's universal across. There aren't any teenager who doesn't want to avoid doing sort of hard work. So this just like really appealed to me. I said, okay, wow, what an amazing shortcut. You can just you don't have to do any hard work. You just think cleverly and you get the answer. And my teacher at the time said, look, this is what mathematics is all about. It isn't about hard work. This is a subject. And he called it the art of the shortcut. And he said, look, at school, I'm going to be teaching you all of these really clever ways of thinking about complex problems, which is just going to do away with all the laborious hard slog, and just you'll be able to do these questions really quickly once you've got these techniques, and then you can go off and play football or soccer. So that really, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to dedicate myself to this amazing subject, mathematics, the art of the shortcut. So in a way, this book that I've written is kind of my thank you in a way to my teacher, first of all, for really showing me this amazing subject, and also just, I hope, a guide for all of those people out there who don't really realize that mathematics is this amazing tool to look at problems in this fast, efficient, cunning way, and to kind of get rid of all the hard work and to think better. You can get to the solution much more easily by using these techniques. So the book's kind of the collection of clever ways that we've come up with over kind of 5,000 years of coming up with mathematics. It's kind of your shortcut to the art of the shortcut. The book kind of hopefully gives you all of these clever ways of thinking.
But I mean, isn't laziness bad? Don't we want our kids to be hardworking and not just searching for the easy way out of everything?
I think that laziness gets a bad press, actually.
Okay.
And that actually we should be celebrating laziness to a certain extent. It's down there as one of the 7 deadly sins, but I think our laziness is often the secret to us, coming up with clever ways of thinking, these clever ways to avoid the hard slog. So, a lot of people...
efficiency.
Yeah, well, Babe Ruth, the great baseball player, he actually credited his laziness for his great ability at baseball, because he said, look, I really hate running. I don't want to run around the bases. I'm just going to knock the ball out of the stadium, home run. Then I just wander around, slowly get to clear the bases. And and there are a lot of executives as well that talk about, sometimes hard work and can get in the way of, new innovative ideas. So if you go to any startup, you'll find that, it's full of games and pool tables and table tennis, because they realize that just encouraging a playful attitude to solving problems, and allowing people to have kind of downtime and just time to sit and look out the window. That's really can be a very powerful way of coming up with new ideas. So I think sometimes, perhaps the easy option is actually to just start doing a lot of hard work.
Right, to just jump in and say 1 + 2 + 3.
Exactly. That's the easy way, but in the end, it turns out to be the long way. So I think it's much better to go, okay, and it does cause a bit of anxiety, because you've got quite a lot of period of thinking, I don't quite know what I'm doing, but I'm getting a bit of space to think about it. And I think laziness gets a bad press. I think we tend to want to control society, and so we sort of say hard work is the way to do it. And I think actually you take a risk by allowing people space to be creative and think, but actually I think we should do that more.
And so one of the ways that we often can look for shortcuts is by recognizing patterns and seeing where patterns exist, which is kind of what Gauss saw, I guess, that this pattern that you could add the last number with the first number, and they always kept adding up to the same thing. And you point out that, though, this is looking for patterns and being able to find patterns is helpful in lots of areas of life. And I thought it was interesting. You were talking about how even a lot of the way that we learn things like music is about practicing arpeggios and practicing scales, kind of training ourselves to like see these patterns, so that then when we are playing a piece of music, we can just jump right into it, and we start to see, oh, I see this is A minor blues. Yep, no problem. And I know what to do here. I hadn't really thought about that before as like pattern recognition, but yeah, it's a cool way of thinking about it.
It's funny because actually as a teenager, I fell in love with maths about the age of 13, but it was also the same age that I really started enjoying playing music. I started learning the trumpet around 12, 13. And I think that those two subjects have always run parallel for me. And a lot of people have talked about connections between mathematics and music. And I think you're absolutely right. It's the idea of a pattern is sort of common to both of them. I actually sometimes call mathematics the science of patterns and music the art of patterns.
Ooh, yeah.
And I do think you're absolutely right. The point is that, why do we learn our scales and arpeggios? As a teenager learning a musical instrument, that feels like the really boring part.
But if you can sucks.
Yeah, it does. Well, what to do. But actually, if you to explain, no, this will ultimately give you an amazing shortcut when you come to read music for the first time. Right. And as you say, you'll just see a pattern on the page and go, oh, that's an arpeggio, and I know that, and so my fingers run it off without any effort at all. So I think I talked to a cellist during the book about shortcuts in music and things. And she compared it very nicely to like reading. You don't want to read each individual letter as you're reading a book. That's just going to take you forever. So actually you start to read collections of letters and see them as words. And so in music as well, these patterns of notes become words that then facilitate you playing your music really quickly. So in music, you've got to do your scales and arpeggios, but you know what you're heading towards because you can hear a wonderful piece of music, a pop song you love, or a piece of jazz, or a great concerto. And I think our problem in mathematics, and something I've been trying to do in a way with this book, is, at school, I think kids are learning their kind of like mathematical scales and arpeggios. They're doing all their multiplication tables, algebra and things, but they never realize the big picture, the big stories, the big music. And we often fail, I think, in our mathematical education to kind of spark that excitement about mathematics by playing them some big ideas. So I think that's what my teacher did for me as a teenager. He kind of opened up this magical world and showed us that there are exciting things outside of what was in school. Exciting things about prime numbers, about high dimensional geometries, about topology. And I think that's what's missing in our mathematical education. What I hope, if any parents out there who are hoping to excite their kids about the importance of mathematics, I think, a lot of the kind of wonderful, hopefully my book, but other people's books and the kind of videos that are online can just help to kind of like play the big ideas that are out there, which will hopefully motivate them to then say, okay, well, I'm prepared to do the hard work at school of learning these mathematical scales and arpeggios, because I quite like to make amazing technology using these mathematical ideas.
So how do we get better at spotting those patterns, or put ourselves in like the right mindset to start seeing things as patterns instead of just kind of feeling lost, adding all the numbers together, or trying to like read every letter of the sentence?
Yeah, I think, with all of these things, it's really an element of practice, and just getting an experience of the sort of patterns to look for, and building up a kind of range of techniques to try and test a kind of series of numbers. What's the difference between these numbers? Is there a pattern there? So I think a lot of people get frightened that maybe you have to be born with a brain or eyes or a way of thinking, and that's really not true. The more time you spend experiencing patterns, being shown kind of patterns in numbers or patterns in geometry and shapes or whatever, and even in music, you begin to get an experience that you can tap into later on. So I think that's really important. It's it's about practice in a way, and that your brain starts to really get better and better at spotting these patterns. So, don't expect it all to happen at once. Just
Yeah.
spending your time in this world gradually gives you that sort of the experience that will help you to spot a pattern in that kind of new set of data that you'll perhaps want to look at.
You talk about how perfectionism is considered essential when it comes to mathematics, but that also a lot of times in life, perfectionism can be a killer for success. I'm interested in that dichotomy and how you think those two sides of the coin come together.
Yeah, I think, it is one of the kind of difficulties with mathematics. It's very unforgiving. So if you make a
Right.
mistake, it's just can be really deadly. But that said, I think again, one of the faults of our kind of education system is often that we want our students to get everything right first time, but
Right.
actually, we perhaps learn more from the moments when we fail, and then we look back and we understand, well, why did I get something wrong? And I think that often is a far richer learning experience than just actually getting everything right first go. So
Yeah. Right.
I wish in education we sort of actually celebrated a bit more those moments when people get things wrong, because I think those are really true learning moments. And it's very interesting. My previous book that I wrote before this one was about artificial intelligence and creativity. And there's kind of new sort of code that's emerging, kind of machine learning, where code kind of changes and mutates from its learning process. And the fascinating thing is the code only changes and becomes better if it gets something wrong. That's the moment when it actually changes. So
Totally.
so I think we should take this into our education. So yeah, ultimately we were looking for people getting the right answers, but on the way, maybe we should be more forgiving and more celebrating the moments when people get things wrong, because now you can learn from what you just did. And that said, even some of the shortcuts in the book are quite interesting, because sometimes it's important to know what information you can throw away. You might say perfectionism. Well, the perfect thing is to know everything about the setting you're in, but
Right.
often there's a lot of things which aren't important, and that's what a really important shortcut. What can I throw away that isn't important here, and what do I need to retain
Mm-hmm.
because that's key to understanding? So, a nice example of that is kind of map that we use every day in the city, which is a map of the kind of subway or the underground. Because I mean, we have this wonderful thing, the London Underground map, and any big city probably has their own map, but it isn't kind of a real map, because the distances between the
Okay.
stations are not
Just dot, 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 dot.
it's just
Yeah.
dots and how they're connected. So
Right.
this is a new sort of map we came up with in mathematics, and it's called a topological map, not a geometric map, because what's important is we don't really care how long it takes to get from
Doesn't
one
matter.
station to the other.
Right.
That's not. We just want to know that there is a connection between the two. So
Right.
actually, this is the wonderful. There was this guy Beck in London in the 30s who came up with this new map of the London Underground, and because people were finding it really difficult to use a geometric map, with all the distances. It was too
Yeah.
messy. They couldn't see what was going on. So, but
Right.
with this new, they pushed and pulled the map around and made this kind of network map. And then suddenly you can navigate this. So that's a case of, I need to throw away the unimportant stuff, which is the
Yeah.
distances and time between the stations. I just want to know how they're connected. So,
Mm.
so that's very interesting. I think that's a very important skill to learn, to look at a problem and say, you know what, I don't need to know any of this stuff.
Right.
This is the key. So finding kind of the essence of the problem is often a really important shortcut.
That's cool. Yeah. And like we can only consider so much information at one time before it just starts to get overwhelming. And a lot of things in math, especially, are so complicated. You can't you can't think about the entire problem all at once. You really have to figure out what's important and where can I focus my attention. And Yeah, it's such a life skill. You have a whole book on shortcuts, but are there ever times when it makes sense to take a long cut?
Yeah, it was. That's kind of interesting because uh, I talked to people from other professions because I was kind of interested whether there were shortcuts that they had that were similar to my ones, or sometimes whether a shortcut is not really what you want. And I really enjoy hiking, and you think about it, a shortcut's a bit pointless if you're going out for a day's hike,
Right.
up to the top of a mountain. So I talked to a mountaineer, and he said, well, I could take a helicopter to the top of the mountain, but that kind of defeats the object. So
Right.
actually, I know there's the Greek philosopher Aristotle had this nice division of different sorts of work. Proesis, which is work to get to a goal. So all you're
Mm,
interested in is actually getting to the finishing point. So
yeah,
any shortcut there is, you don't mind because it's just hard work getting there. You just want to get to the goal.
totally.
But then he said there's a different sort of work, which is called praxis, which is
Mm,
kind of work for its own sake, the work that you enjoy doing.
yeah.
So I think it's important to know, yeah, absolutely. Maybe I don't want a shortcut because I'm really enjoying the time spent doing this kind of work. So my feeling is these shortcuts I'm proposing are trying to help you to avoid the work you don't want to do so you can get to the point where you can do the work you want to do. So it's a bit like, if I'm going on a hike, I don't want to do the boring walk to the beginning of the hike because that's probably cross lots of roads and stuff like that. So I'm quite happy to get to the beginning of the walk
Yeah, yeah,
using
yeah, yeah.
using my car or using the local bus. But then I
Right.
get out and I want to use my legs and I want to take time doing that. So I think you're right. There's sometimes the the long the long way is what you enjoy doing. So I never watch trailers for movies because that's basically a
Ah.
shortcut. And I often find like, well, I don't need to watch the movie
Well,
anymore
now I
because
know
you've
what's gonna happen. Yeah.
exactly. They
I
show
know
me
all
all
the
the best
funniest
bits, all
parts.
the best
Yeah, yeah.
gags. Exactly. So actually, there you don't want to shortcut the movie because you want to spend the time in it. But on the other hand, you don't want to see every single detail of the main character's life. So there is
Right.
already a shortcut. The movie's taken the best bits and put it together. So
Only
so, so
90
that's kind of
minutes.
balance.
Yeah, yeah,
I tell you,
yeah.
there's at the end of the book, I actually talk about problems that we would like a shortcut for,
Yeah.
but that we actually believe mathematically that there isn't a clever way that you can't avoid doing the hard work. So
Yeah.
there's one very famous one called the traveling salesman problem. So this
Mm,
is a salesman who wants to go around a map of different cities, say in America, and he's got or she's got distances between all of the cities and
yeah.
has got to find the best way, the shortest
How do I
way to visit
optimize
all the.
this route?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of companies are absolutely faced with that problem of if they're shipping goods, they want to find the shortest way to use the least amount of fuel. Um,
Yeah.
so we would love kind of a shortcut where you say, okay, this is the way you find the shortest
Right.
way around this map. But we think this sort of problem actually there isn't a shortcut beyond actually trying all of the different possibilities, listing them, and then seeing which one is the shortest one. And that,
Interesting.
yeah, with 10 cities, that's already, a huge number of possibilities. So it's interesting that mathematics, it is the art of the shortcut, but it also might be possible to show when a problem actually there isn't a shortcut beyond doing all the
Mm,
hard work. And that's as important as, sometimes you need to know, well, I shouldn't waste my time looking out the window trying to think of a clever idea because this one I just have to do the hard work. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that we do have these problems. And in fact, there's $1 million prize. If you want to incentivize your teenagers to do maths, then a good monetary prize might be a good one. But there's $1 million prize to prove actually that there isn't a shortcut to that traveling salesman problem because we don't know. We think that there could well be. There might be some
That's
cunning way
possible.
that we haven't come up with.
Right. Yeah.
So either you have to come up with a cunning way to solve that problem, or prove there is no shortcut.
Definitively
And either
prove it
way,
can't be done.
yeah, if you can do either of those, you win $1 million. So
That doesn't sound bad. Yeah. So set your kids loose. Hey, we're here today with Marcus du Sautoy talking about his book, Thinking Better, The Art of the Shortcut in Math and Life. And we're not done yet. Here's a look at what's coming up in the second half of the show.
In a way, we tend to kind of compartmentalize our education, such as people doing maths, then they're doing music, then they're doing history. And actually, I think we should look for more interesting ways to collaborate across our subjects. Having tools to be able to look at data in the right way and see the patterns and kind of make that shortcut, it's going to be really powerful in this kind of modern world.
Yeah. We all have certain things that our brain can grab onto and start finding shortcuts and seeing the big picture more easily than others. And sometimes we try to force ourselves to be beating our head against the wall.
He scanned my brain playing chess, and he said, "Marcus, you're not going to be a grandmaster." But he said,
"Stick to math, buddy."
Yeah, he said, "I think if we scanned you doing mathematics, we'll probably see you using the same kind of brain pattern of this shortcut across the brain, not actively, consciously working things out, and that's what you're good at." So I think it's controversial, his research, but. And I think, I always say this to kids at school, it's all about finding the thing that you are good at, that you love doing. And don't go and do the thing at university that you think will be useful or that you're not passionate about. Find the thing and you will make a success out of whatever that is. So I think, too much we want our kids to go off, I don't know, be doctors and lawyers.
Oh, that's the hard thing as parents. It's you really got to apply yourself more in your science classes because that's how you're going to make money and have a stable career. But maybe that's not really what our child's their brain is wired for.
No, exactly. So I take, I'm not sure I totally buy into the neuroscientists' full kind of research proposal, but I do. The spirit is right that we should be helping our kids to find the thing that they're just going to really be passionate about spending their life doing.
Want to hear the full interview? Sign up for a subscription today. You get access to all the interviews I've conducted, as well as new episodes weeks before the general public. It's completely affordable, and your subscription helps support the work we do here at Talking to Teens. Thanks for listening.